Hi everyone, it is day 8 of being out of school and today's Tuesday. So today we're going to have Taco Tuesday and I'm going to teach you how to make your own tortillas. I went to the store earlier to try and buy some flour tortillas to have with our tacos tonight, but I couldn't find any. So I figured this would be a perfect opportunity to teach you guys how to make them at home. So the ingredients that you're going to need for this recipe are fairly simple. You're going to need 2 cups of flour. You're going to need 1 1/2 tablespoons of shortening. If you don't have shortening at home, you can use 3 tablespoons of canola oil instead. You're also going to need 1 1/2 tablespoons of lard. I don't have lard, so I'm using butter. I only have salted, but unsalted is best if you're trying to substitute for lard. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and then up to 3/4 of a cup of warm water. All right, so I have my 2 cups of flour in this bowl, and I want to mix in my other dry ingredients. So I need to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. This is a 1/4 teaspoon measuring spoon. So I'm going to do 3 of them. I poke it like that so that there aren't any big lumps in there. So we have our 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Next we need 1 teaspoon of salt. You can do this to taste. If you make these at home and you decide that it's way too salty, you can alter it and put in less salt. So once I've got those in there, I'm just going to mix it together with my hands. Make sure your hands are super, super clean because all of this you're going to be doing with your hands. All right, so now that I have the dry ingredients all mixed together, I'm going to start adding my fat. So my first fat is going to be my butter. So I have 1 1/2 tablespoons of butter that I'm putting in. If you have lard, that's going to be more traditional. And then I'm also going to add in...
No.
Attention, hog. Next I'm going to add in my 1 1/2 tablespoons of Crisco. So I'm going to scoop a little out, pack it on in. You want to make sure you really pack it into the teaspoons. You can find Crisco, vegetable Crisco, that's like butter where you can cut off how much there is. Like there's markers on the outside of the packaging, but we just have a big tub of it. So there is 1 tablespoon. Now for the 1/2 tablespoon. So I'm lucky enough to have a 1/2 tablespoon measure, but if I didn't, you guys tell me how many teaspoons I should use instead of a 1/2 tablespoon. All right, I've got that all in there. And now I'm going to use my fingers to kind of mush it all together. So I want to evenly distribute the fat throughout the flour. So I'm just going to start pinching this in and evenly distributing all of the fat together. All right, so you can see that there are no more big clumps of fat in there. You can't see the butter, you can't see the shortening in there. So that's how we know that we're at a good place to start adding our water. So I said to use 3/4 of a cup of water. You won't use all of it, but you should have 3/4 of a cup of water, warm water on hand. And you're gonna slowly add some and then kind of work it in until you have a nice, smooth, soft dough. So I ended up using 1/2 cup of water for this. Depending on what time of year it is, you'll find that you use less. If the air is more moist, you'll use less water. If the air is more dry, you'll use more water. But the dough's pretty nice and smooth now, but to make it even more smooth, I'm going to knead it for 10 minutes. If you find that your dough is getting sticky, you can add a little extra flour so that it becomes nice and smooth and not sticky. All right, so I've kneaded this for 10 minutes. It's nice, smooth, malleable. It's ready to rest now. So I'm gonna cover this up and I'm gonna let it rest for 20 minutes. That way it can kind of relax a little bit. So the dough's been resting for 20 minutes, covered in a little bit of saran wrap to keep the moisture in. And it's all rested and ready to go now. So I'm going to divide it up into little gumball sized balls just to evenly portion it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it a larger gumball, I suppose. Good kind out of the vending machine. So I've got a ball there and the bottom's a little rough. So I'm going to put the rough part against the palm of my hand and then just kind of roll it around. That'll help to start to smooth out the bottom. So we're going to do that. And then I'm going to set it right on the counter. I'm going to keep doing that until I've got all of the dough divided up into even little pieces. So I ended up with 10 little tortilla balls that we're now going to roll out. So I floured my surface, and I'm going to pick one to put in the middle and kind of pat down. I'm going to flour both sides of it. And then I'm also going to flour my little rolling pin. And when you roll a tortilla, you want to make sure to start in the center and roll out. And that's really a rule that you'll follow for anything that you're rolling out with a rolling pin. So I'm going to start at the center and roll out, and then I'll turn. And basically what I'm looking for with this is I want to be able to see through the dough to the countertop. That's how thin you want it. You want it really, really thin, and you want to turn it a lot. All right, so I'm just about there. You can see the color of the countertop through the tortilla, especially over here. If you had a pattern on your countertop, it would be a lot easier to see through it. Now all you want to do is kind of push it out and try and make it a circle. Obviously, I'm not a professional at doing this, so it's not a very regular shaped tortilla. So this is your time to make it a regular shape. You're going to try and make it as round as you can just by kind of stretching it out in different places. And you want to be careful. The dough is pretty elastic, so you can work with it a lot like this. But if you pull too hard, you risk ripping it. All right. I would say that's probably as round as I'm going to get it. So I'm going to take a little flour from over on the side. I'm going to dust it on the top so that it's nice and dry. I don't want it sticky at all. Flip it, make sure the other side has some flour on it. And I'm going to put it on this plate over to the side, and I'm going to keep rolling these out until I get them all done, and I'm going to keep piling them up on the side. So I'll come back when we're good with this. All right, so I have my stack of uncooked tortillas over here, and I have my pan heating up on medium heat. I'm not quite sure what temperature I'm going to want it at, so I'm going to play with it as we go. But it's nice and hot, so I'm going to take my first tortilla and I'm going to drop it in. Now the pan is dry. It doesn't have any oil in it or anything. And that's good because we want a dry tortilla. We don't want it to be all oily. So I'm going to let it heat up. It's probably going to start to bubble. You can pop those bubbles, but you don't have to. We'll see what this one does, but the second you start noticing that the opposite side, the side down in the pan, is starting to blister, that's when you know that side's done and you can flip it. So that's what we're looking for. I think I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit, go to like a medium high, closer to medium, but kind of a medium high heat. Just checking. Alright, calling that one done. And I'm going to drop the next one in. So the tortillas are done. They definitely didn't turn out perfect, but they certainly look pretty tasty. The ultimate test with tortillas to see if they've turned out properly is if you can fold them in half without them splitting. Now mine do split a little bit on the edge, so they did get a little drier than what we would want them to be. But that's okay. They're still going to taste fantastic. I'm just making them to have with our tacos for dinner tonight. So they certainly do work, and they smell fantastic, and they look fantastic. If you weren't able to get taco seasoning at the store, I wanted to sneak in an extra little recipe for you guys. You can make your own taco seasoning at home using things that you have hopefully in your pantry. They're pretty common ingredients. So if you need to write this down, get a pen and a piece of paper. So first thing you're going to need is 6 tablespoons of chili powder. You're going to need 4 teaspoons of ground cumin. You'll need 3 teaspoons of paprika. You'll need 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne. Now, when you're cooking your ground beef, you'll get the ground beef all cooked up and you'll drain a lot of the fat out of it. You will pour in 2 tablespoons of that mixture, and you'll add in 1/4 cup of water and mix it all together, and it's just like if you were to get a package of taco seasoning from the store. We got lucky. We were able to find 1 or 2 that they had left. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make tortillas. I hope you make them at home. Let me know if you do. It was definitely fun. Oh, before I forget, I did find that cooking them on a higher heat worked better than a medium heat. I think I had it on a medium high. I think it was on like a 7 or an 8. So if you try making them at home, use a higher heat. I also found that the ones that I rolled thinner worked a lot better. So the thinner you can roll them, the better. The professionals have tortilla presses that just kind of press the tortilla dough to the perfect thinness. I'm not a professional. I just make them every once in a while for fun, which is why I'm not hugely picky at how perfect they turn out. But if you have one of those, definitely use it. And if you've ever made these at home, and if you know why, let me know why the edges crack. What can I do to prevent the cracked edges? All right, and I guess that's it. I hope you guys all are staying safe and healthy, and I will see you tomorrow.